have a look at getting a little bit more complex in SketchUp. And so the first thing that we're going to do is have a look at doing some arrays with some arches, and we'll also have a look at doing some staircases. So first thing, I'm just going to 50,000 by 50,000. So I'm obviously in millimeters, but I'm going to make a 50 by 50 meter. That's good. Size base to get us going, and I'm just going to raise that up a little bit. So maybe 500, doesn't need to be too thick. And I'm going to triple click. So triple click, and then I can right click and I can go make group. Okay, so that's good because it means that we're not going to, our objects aren't going to lock onto the floor of this one. Okay, now next thing we're going to do is create ourselves a arch or an array of arches. In the last video, I wasn't too careful about the size of these. I was just showing the general technique, but in this one, we'll get a little bit more, I suppose, accurate with what we're doing here. So I'll make it 8,000, 500. We can always change the thickness of these if we need to, make them look a little bit more substantial. And I'm going to bring it up maybe, to starters, maybe 8,000. That might do the trick. Okay, we can adjust the proportions to get it looking right later on. Okay, so we want to add our arches in. So let's come in maybe 2,000. And then you can see it's created this endpoint. I'm just going to rule all the way up through at the moment. And I'll come in 2,000 here. And then you can see that the pencil wants to snap to where I made that. That's good. And thinking about the height of this, let's have a look. Proportion wise, we want it to be fairly generous. Maybe about 3,500. I think that'll give us a good sort of proportion. So I'm going to rule across that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop in an arch. So I'm going to use this this tool here. You can see here it's the 2-point arc, but there's a few other arcs, and you can also use the circles, not bad. Maybe I'll use the circle just for something different. So the circle's pretty good because you can go from a midpoint. Oops, sorry, I'm not on the circle. Let me just grab it. Circle now. Except I lost that. Point there. I'll go back to the circle, and then it'll snap into the middle, and you can just pull it out exactly, and it'll touch the side, and you know that you'll be kind of like pretty well sorted as far as your dimensions go, and you're going to have it looking good. Okay, so there's some bits there that we don't need in this geometry. I think SketchUp, this online version, can be just a touch slow to select the tools as you go along. Okay, so that's good. So we've got our arch cut out into this now. So what I'm going to do is just use my push-pull tool, push it through, and it'll just kind of click. I like to push it so it touches the edge. So you can see it says on edge, and then when we do that, it knows that we've pushed all the way through, and it's nice and tidy. So that's good. Okay, so what we might do now, do the old triple click on that, and we'll group this together, and then we know that we've got that locked off and it's looking pretty good. Okay, so that can be basically the start of our scene. So what I'm going to do is come across here and grab my move tool, grab that once, and this move tool, it's best if you move things by the corner. So I'm going to grab that, start moving, and I'm going to duplicate this across, and I'll give it a little bit of space, maybe something like that between them, maybe just a touch more. I'll make it a little bit more generous. That's about good. Okay, so I've duplicated one. I've made no extra motions on that, and now I'm just going to go X12, and what it's going to do is it's going to duplicate out a set of arches for me on the surface, just like we did in the previous video. So now I can zoom in and I've got an interesting looking kind of like hallway of arches that we can look down. So, you know, perfect for maybe putting a focal point at the end of, or it might be just purely dealing with the interesting light and shadows you can generate with a structure like this. So that's good. We'll sit all that over there. Now, one of the good things about this doing it this way is it's actually quite easy to adjust later on. So, but we'll leave it there for the moment. So let's have a look. There's some other stuff going on within these type of structures that are interesting, and that's using kind of like staircases. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. So let me have a look here. So I'm going to come down this way, and I'll make it like 50 meters by 500 mil wide. It'll give me the start of this wall, and then this wall, I'll bring it up. I'll just have a general sort of look. Often I'll just kind of stretch things up, and then I'll decide, you know, I'm getting it accurate. So I'll just kind of get the look of it first. We'll make it fairly high, maybe 10 meters high. One of the good things about working in 3D is that, you know, you've got no real physical constraints on what you're working with, so you can let your imagination take over, which is really good. Okay, so that's looking good. Now, there's a couple of ways we can approach this, and I might show a couple of different types of staircases, one with floating treads and one with a big solid tread that we draw in. There's pluses and minuses to both. They're really just stylistically different, that's all. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if we're 10 meters high, let's go 10 meters wide, just for starters. So I'll drag this along. Here's my start here. That's good. And I might come along another 10 meters. That's good, because we don't want to start our staircase too close to the edge of this, so we'll make it a little bit more generous and have some space out here. Okay, so what we want to do is we've got to really create a grid. So we select one of these lines. So I'll select this one here, and then I can right click and I can go, I can do a divide. Oops, let me just make sure I've got that. Divide, and how many segments are we going to have? It's pretty large, so we're going to have a fair few segments. Maybe 20 segments for starters. And I'll go 20 segments here. That gives a stair rise of 500 per stair, which is pretty excessive, but that'll do for this. Otherwise, it'll take me too long in the video to make a finer looking staircase, and we can always duplicate it anyway. So there we go. So I've divided it in both directions using my pen tool. So often what I'll do is I'll just come along and I'll draw the full grid this time, I think, just so you can see. There we go. I'm just finding those endpoints and just repeating them along, letting it snap vertically. Now this is going to take me a couple of minutes. So if you want to fast forward the next little section of the video till I've drawn all these in, go for it. Here we go. I'll do it as fast as I can. This is a little bit overkill. Normally I don't go quite this crazy because I normally do floating steps, but I want to have the option of doing a couple of different styles. That's good. Oops. It's getting a little bit snappy there. I just got to zoom in. Yep, good one. Okay, so that is that grid. And then I'm just going to come across. There's probably a way I could duplicate this as a grid, but I think in this instance, let's just draw it this way. Okay, we probably only want to take our steps up to there because we want to leave room for like a doorway to be able to kind of go out through this wall to give it a bit of mystery. So I think that is probably not too bad for starters. I don't love steps when they're kind of like really square like this, but it'll make it easier for our first go at this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll lock this off. So let's do a triple click. And we're going to go we're just going to make it a group. Good one. Okay, so now that we've got it as a group, it's going to make our life pretty easy. So one way that we can do this now is we can draw onto one of these squares. Yep. We can pull it out. Easy. Yep, so we've got ourselves something coming out. We might just set the length of this though at this kind of strange proportions, but let's go 1500. Okay, something like that. So once we've got that, let's go. We're going to make it a component. Yep, and we'll call it stair tread. Okay, so we've got our stair tread made. So what we can do now is grab our stair tread. I'll grab it by this bottom corner and holding down, whoops, that's the way. So I'm just duplicating it, holding down my control on a Mac. It's a little bit different on a PC keyboard. So I'll let go once, then I'm going to go X20. And it's going to just duplicate that out. So I'm going to have plenty to work with, which is okay. And I don't want all of these, but I want a lot of them. So these ones, I might just move them down somewhere else for starters. And always snap corner to corner when you're working with staircase, or when you're moving any object, because it'll want to snap into place. So that's a good way to get things nice and accurate. So I've got my stair tread moving up there. It's looking good. So that's one way of making a set of stairs. Because these stairs are components, what you can actually do is you can go in And if you adjust one of these components, so let me just say grab underneath this, it's being a little bit touchy. That's all right. We'll zoom in a bit more. You can see now if I adjust one of these, it adjusts all the stair treads, including those ones that I've moved across and put over there. So that's what the difference is between, say, making something a group and making it a component. The component is a replication of the original component. If you change any of them, it changes all of them. So that's a good way to go. So I really like using components for staircases. You can you can do, like, once you've got that, you can put like a rail on it and you can get really complicated. But I think part of the, beauty of these types of images that we're doing is that they've got a bit of mystery about them. So like, you see these staircases, they don't have any rails, they go through these sort of hidden entrances into walls. It's like you're not really sure what the purpose of this environment is, and it makes it a bit more interesting. So that is our one type of staircase. So let's just undo that. Okay, that's fine. So what we might do now is we're just going to select that, and the SketchUp selection tool basically just like rules. If you draw right around the whole object, it'll select it for you. So I'm going to move those over this direction so I can start moving it. You see it's lighting up the green axis. I can hold down Shift and that keeps it restricted to that axis. So that makes it pretty easy. Okay, now there's another, let's have a look at another type of staircase. Actually, I don't mind that like grid pattern on the wall. It looks pretty kind of good actually. We've got that in the road, but I think we'll make this just we'll stick with the plan and make it a traditional kind of staircase like I was thinking. What I was thinking is that we would sort of like go out of these group modes, and I would just use a pencil here, and I would just start like following this grid. Just drawing our steps in like this. Okay, so this is going to allow us to have sort of a solid, staircase. I'll keep following up. Yeah, and then this will be the platform. We'll come back down again, and I'll come back to here. Okay, remember that this is not within this group that the wall's made of, but we're outside it, so we're in it like a separate thing. So you can see there I've got it made. So then I can just grab it and I can pull it out. Again, I'll pull it out to get the idea, the proportion, and then push it back in and just pull it out and go like 1500. Hit return. Okay, that's cool. So that gives us these stairs. As I said before, really these stairs, I don't love them when they've got this kind of like square profile, because it's pretty unnatural. There are stair calculators online that you can use that'll give you like a lot better idea of what steps should be. In this case, to get it looking a bit better, what I might do is now just like squash it down a bit so the stair riser height isn't the same as the stair tread width, and that'll be a good way to go. Let's grab our scale tool, and I'm just going to grab that middle one, and then I can sort of start to push it down a little bit so the stairs look a little bit more, they're a touch more relaxed, but they look a little bit more like a natural staircase that you might use. So that's good. Okay, no worries there. So we can move that around now, just like we talked about with our other one. So, part of this kind of scene is having these, these mysterious kinds of, sight lines and shapes. You don't know what's going on. So maybe I'll just draw in another one over here. So I'll just come through here. That'll be like hidden behind. So let's go 50,000 millimeters, which is 50 meters. So I'll put in my comma and then I go 500, which gives me half a meter. Whoops. That's not very good. So let's use our tool here, our rotate tool. We'll rotate around 90 degrees. Good one. This is the most annoying tool. There we go. Yeah, it's a weird one, that SketchUp rotate tool. It does work really well, but you often have to have some sort of surface that's aligned to the direction you want to rotate it. So I'm going to come up 10 meters. That's cool. Okay, and I've got my staircase over here, and what I'm going to do, is I'll move this across a bit. I'll move it there. I'll use my rotate tool again, just so you can see that in action. So you click once, you kind of rule out to make yourself a handle, how you want it to rotate, and then you sort of push it around. And you can see here, it's going the wrong way because I didn't really have that. I've got to set that in blue, which means it'll rotate around the blue axis. So I'm going to basically so I'll just put in 90 there. Look at that. I think I'm a bit out of whack. Well, that is not very good. Okay, so you can see I've just made that wall a bit out of shape, which wasn't very good of me. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that through there, check my dimensions, and we can see that the dimensions, we've got the short one first and the long one second. So I'll just go 500, comma 50,000. That's a bit better. Okay, and then I'll bring that up. Okay, I am a little bit like freewheeling on this tutorial, so I'm going to make some mistakes, but that's okay. Right, now we're moving forward. So let's grab this staircase now, and let's rotate it. So I'll get it so it's blue, means it's rotating around the blue Z-axis. Let's push this now. Yeah, that's a crazy way to do it. Just make sure that's a group before we do anything. And this, push it around now, okay? And we can just type in 90. Yep, it's going to move into position. Then I can just grab it by a corner and I can just sort of pop it against the wall like this. So it gives us, you can see here, if we were to have this sort of scene, we've got kind of these mysterious arches here, and then we've got this these steps going up. Now we can work on this wall. Let's just draw something in here. So we'll come up from here. Let's come up. How high do we want this? 2283. So let's go 2500 and the width, let's come across 1840, let's come across maybe 2000. Okay, so that's good. And then I'll do this through just so it joins up into a square, and I think that we want it to be an arch. I think it's the way to go. We've got our circle down here, so it finds the midpoint automatically. Drag our circle out. That's looking pretty good. And let's get rid of the stuff that we don't want here. So we'll just use our eraser. Don't need that cross piece. Don't need this piece down here. So we've got like a nice clean arch. And then we can sort of start to push it through and let it go like that. Okay, so we've got this kind of mysterious doorway. We don't really know where it's going to. It looks kind of, inviting to walk through. We might just on the other side of this, just create a bit of a geometry like that, and then I might just bring that out so that if we sort of looking through, we can see that it's kind of leading somewhere. So we don't really know how we're going to position our camera yet, but that gives us a bit of extra detail if we need it. So that can be an interesting way to go. And then some of these also, I noticed with a couple of these examples that I was looking at that they had, these other kind of mysterious walls that go up in other directions. So maybe we want to come across here and we want to, what have we got, 13,000. So let's go like 12,000, 500. So we're maintaining that similar kind of width, and we might then pull this up using our push pull it up, auto inference off there, that's good. And then let's draw in some sort of portal here. So let's come out maybe, I don't know, again, maybe 3,000. I'm just trying to do this so it looks right. Let's come up maybe, 7500. Yeah, we'll come across. We'll keep it quite narrow, maybe 2500, and we'll bring it down again. And then we'll push that through, so it's like a giant, almost like a giant sized doorway. Push that through the edge, and it's just like sitting there. So it's sort of starting to be part of our scene. And so it's starting to work. So, and then we might sort of start to, over here, we've got that full size staircase. I might just group that. So I'll make it a group. So it's component initially, and then we group all the components together so we can move it as one big thing. Let's just grab it and we'll move it across somewhere. So we'll move it like that. This might be the sort of thing that we rotate, or maybe we move it through this through here. That might be really dumb, but let's give it a go. I don't know. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'm lost. That's better. Okay, now if you ever do get lost, say you zoomed right in and you don't know what's going on, you can always, this is really great, this search tool here. And if you search for zoom extents, type that in there, but you got to spell it properly. So let's go zoom, extents, XT, here we go. This search always brings up these kind of, these results that you can actually act on, tells you what the command is for it as well. So let's click on zoom extents, and what that does is it zooms your view out to contain all the objects in the scene. So if you zoomed right in, your camera's kind of like stuck inside an object, or you don't know what's going on, then zoom extents gets you out into a workable kind of situation. Now, so I've got this staircase going through this doorway here. It looks kind of weird, but we can probably fix it. Let's maybe just move it into the center a little bit more. Now, I'm really just guessing that, if that's in the center or not. I'm being bad, not using my exact measurements, but that's all right for the moment, I think. Okay, so what you can do in a situation like this, it's not too bad. So these stairs are kind of like, just when I was saying we need zoom extents. Let's get our zoom extents. Maybe, I know we're going for air of mystery, but these just look maybe just a bit too weird, being completely free floating. They might just be a little bit too sort of distracting. So a good way to go then is just, we can go into one of these and we can create, something that sort of holds it up. So let's just go, let's have a look. I've just got to work out where I actually am on this. So let's come in, what are we, 1500. So let's come in like 600. And we'll come in 600 from this side. 600. Okay, and then we've got these 2 points here. That's not bad. So let's then take this and we'll join it up to this one, because it's created it on the next one up, which is kind of weird, but it works. And then we'll go from this endpoint to this endpoint. We've done that good or weird? Whoa, bad. I think I've come across them somehow. That's okay. So what I'll do is I'll come in. I've got that one there. Is I'll rule it on the edge here. There we go. And we can see it's applied to all of them. It's just a little bit slow to actually show it turn up. So that should. Endpoint to endpoint. Escape. Then this one should go endpoint to endpoint here. Should be able to go across. And then we should be able to go endpoint to endpoint on the bottom. Endpoint to endpoint here. Should work. Yep, we're not going too bad. Except for that little cross bit. Let's get rid of that. This video is dragging on a bit as I'm mucking about here. So if it's driving you crazy, that's okay. Just bear with me. Okay, so we'll fill that in. We'll fill these in. We'll fill this in. Okay, and then we've got kind of like at least we've got then something that's like, a little bit more sensible. There we go. So that's sort of filled in. So yeah, at least we've got a staircase now that looks like it's got some kind of like, way of holding itself up. And I've done it so that it doesn't actually touch the ground, like the whole thing's sort of hovering there, but it's kind of like supported out on this long piece, and it can just kind of mysteriously kind of like go through this doorway, and then we can just sort of see the start of that. Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to fine tune that, I think, as we go along. But anyway, look, these are some of the kind of components that you can start to use in your buildings. And then once it starts coming together, it's probably a good idea just to grab your goggles, turn your goggles on. Let's just get down here and let's turn our shadows on. I wish SketchUp just always had shadows on, because it looks heaps better with shadows on. It's a lot more natural, I think, to model with it on. And let's have a look here, so we can sort of start aligning our, our date and our, all these shapes. Oh, it's cool when you go to dark. Yeah, we can start to get a feel for how, it looks, and then you start to get these interesting shapes from the shadows as we work on our time. Yeah, and you can see it sort of opens up little gaps, adds little highlights and things like that. So we're basically getting into the point now where we're ready to export this out to Blender. So we'll do that in our next tutorial. I'll need to use SketchUp Pro to export. There used to be a really good importer within Blender, which was just genius, that brought in SketchUp files, did a great job, brought in the textures, just worked fantastic. But that just is sort of gone by the wayside. So we're basically, what we'll do is we'll export a file out and using SketchUp Pro, and then we'll import that into Blender. We'll see how we go. There's usually a few weird things about center locations and things once we bring it in, but it works pretty good. Okay, so if you're using this online version and you go to export, unfortunately, whatever you want to export, which is a collage, is pretty old standard good one, we've got to upgrade. Okay, if we want to export a collider, which is a bit of a pity. SketchUp used to be really nice and open, but since Trimble have come on board, they are, whoever they are, they've kind of like, they've put some work into it with this online version of it, but unfortunately they've sort of shut down some of the options at the same time. So I understand that they're trying to make money with this product, so that's cool. But I think that their pro pricing for schools is pretty hopeless. I think that they, if Trimble happened to get this far in this video, which I doubt because it's ending up being pretty boring, have a think about your school's pricing, because we'd love to use it, but I really think within a school environment that we do need those sort of like exports tools to make it really useful. So that'd be cool if you could just offer a good pro, training one. If people learn to use pro, then they're going to go on to use it in the industry. They're going to buy your software. That's the way we work in education, and we're extremely price driven as well. So have a think about that. All right, so we will, in the next video, we'll move it into Blender, where we can take advantage of some good lighting and and get our scene really cooking up nicely.